Hello and welcome to busyworksbeats.com. Today we're going to go over the Kanye West Real Friends style track. Now in this video we're not going to remake the exact track. We're going to use the same elements and show you how to make it your own. Okay, because that's how you advance in music production. Anybody can copy notes. Anybody can just repeat what somebody else did. What we want to show you today is how to achieve the right sound selection and how to put it together so that it has the same emotion as Kanye West's new song, Real Friends. Swish is going to be amazing this February. I can't wait. Kanye West, every single album he drops is just a new creative approach. And he's pushing the industry. Even though every song is not on the Billboard or the charts, he still influences the hip hop industry and is one of the heads, as well as Drake, as well as Kendrick, as well as Jay-Z. So today we're going to go over the sound selection and how to put it together so you can get a track similar to Real Friends. So firstly, we need to start with a kick that has a nice 808 extended tail. So let's go to busyworksbeats.com. Let's go to our X drums. Let's go to kicks and let's load up kick EO because it has a nice 808 tail. Let's load that up, a nice sub bass to where it's not overpowering like an 808 and it has the kick transient. Now we need something like a Foley sound to create the snare. So Kanye does things differently, as we know. So let's go to packs in FL Studio's new packs. Let's go to drums in mode audio. And I want to search for a sound called the mug scrape because I found it in the other Kanye West video at busyworksbeats.com/Kanye. This is the Kanye West series. And I found this percussion sample and it's perfect. So let's right click and open that in new channel. So instead of using snares, he's using environmental sounds, and that's what separates Kanye from everybody else. So now that we have the kick and the snare, let's program the rhythm. So the biggest mistake when producing drums is that you don't create enough variation. So I'm going to show you a quick way to create variation. So let's change the tempo to a slower tempo, like 86 BPM. Hip hop is moving all over the place. We went from 140 all the way down to 120. Now we're down in 80s and 90s with Meek Mill stuff. So for the kick, we're going to go boom, 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 ch, boom. Actually, we're going to go boom, boom, ch, boom, 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 ch, boom. So to do that, we're going to place our kicks right before the snare. So that's the magic here. So it goes boom, boom, ch. That's the classic hip hop kick snare relationship. Okay. And to create variation, what we're going to do is clone this. And now on pattern 2, we're going to do something different. So I'm going to add a kick right here on pattern 2. Actually, let's move it to the left a bit. Now let's clone this pattern and add a kick at the end. So now we have 3 different kick patterns. Okay, so that's the magic there. And now let's go to the playlist. Let's right click patterns. Let's go to pattern 1. So here's how you start creating variation. Let's right click, select pattern 2. Then we want to go back to pattern 1. And then we want to finish off with pattern 3. So let's right click, go to pattern 3. So now you have 3 different drum sequences put together into a unique 4-bar evolution there. Now we're going to process the drums so that they sound a little more like the record. And I'm going to go through that. But let's get through the sound selection first. So that's the drum pattern. Let's move on to pattern 4. And let's pull up a piano. Now I'm going to show you how to do this with just stock plugins. You don't need the best of the best plugins, even though someone could consider this one of the best plugins. So here's a stock piano. Okay. And what we're going to do here is build out the chord progression first. Then we're going to go back and do the melody. And I'll show you the trick in the melody here. So let's load up. Let's right click, go to piano roll. Now I'm not going to copy the chords from the song. But the secret here with the chords is you want to create major 7 chords, and we're going to use our chord codes today to figure out major 7 chords, which is a different video. We'll leave a link in the description about our chord codes, how to create any chord using numbers and bypass all the traditional music theory and just get straight to the chord. So we're going to build the major 7 chord and we're going to lower the root note down an interval. That's the kind of emotional approach to this sound. So let's create our own chord progression. We're not going to copy the song. But what we're going to do here is go upward. So I mentioned this before, but going upward in your chord progression creates the perception of happiness. And going downward creates the perception of depression. So we're going to balance the two in our chord progression and our melody. If you notice in Real Friends, the melody goes dun dun dun, it goes down, whereas the chord progression goes dun dun dun. So it's a contrast. One goes down, one goes up. So you're not feeling overly depressed and you're not feeling overly happy. And that's how you can start to create your own emotion within a track. So chords themselves are not the secret to the emotion. It's the chord progression tied with the energy direction of a song. And we go over that in our music theory course at busyworksbeats.com/music theory. So let's start here on a black note, just a random black note. And let's pick a tone that we like, actually. So let's say we wanted to create a chord progression with those notes, and we don't know how to build out the chords. So here's where chord codes and our different systems come into play. We can build chords based on just one note. This is called reverse engineering chords. So anyway, with the chord codes, the major 7 chord code is 0, 4, 7, 11, and we're talking about semitones. So the top notes, we're going to assume this is the top note of some chord. So working backwards, we're going to assume this is the number 11 in some chord. So let's count backwards. This is 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Then we're going to add that note in. So far we have 11 and 7, but the chord code is 0, 4, 7, 11. So we have 11, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And there we have the F sharp major 7. Now the key to the sound is pulling the root note down an interval to match the top note. So we're creating octaves and getting rid of the root note or transposing it down an interval. And that's what creates that energy. So let's go to G sharp. Again, this is going to be the number 11 in our chord code. So it's 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now it's not always a major 7 chord. Okay, so we go over all those technologies at, again, busyworksbeats.com/music theory. So if you ever get confused or want more, go there. Again, we're going to lower that root note down one, so hit shift down. Now this chord happens to sound out of place. So let's pull this note up. This is an exception to the rule because every scale is not major or minor. Sometimes you have diminished chords. Sometimes you have different weird shaped chords. So we're going to change this chord by lifting up the E to an F. Okay, so that gives us a smoother transition because we have similar notes in the first chord to the second chord. So that was one of the techniques we go over in the courses that you may face. It's not always major, it's not always minor. So here we have the top note, A sharp, that's 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now right now it's going to sound too happy. So let's pull that down, one interval. Again, there's something about this that sounds too happy. So let's pull this note down. So typically you're not going to have to make so many adjustments, but we have those systems for you. So let's add this into the playlist. And the key is to hit Control A, Control down, so it's played in a lower octave. Now let's process the sound later, but right now that's the raw technique to the chords. So let's program the melody, and then we're going to get into the Moog bass, and I'm going to switch out the piano so it's not this piano. Actually, let's keep this piano just to show you how you don't need 1,000 plugins. Let's see what else. The melody. So let's open up another piano, and instead of playing lower octaves, we're going to play the high octaves. So let's hit Control L, and let me collapse the mixer a bit. Let's go to our playlist. Now the key here is to put the melody a little bit before the chord progression to make it sound like it's a real recording. You don't want to have everything sound like it's robotic and to the tempo and to the metronome. So for the melody, we're going to introduce it a little bit earlier than the chord progression. So the melody, as you know, goes it goes up to down. So what we're going to do is make sure we go from up to down because the chords are going upward. We need the melody to go downward. Now let's start at a higher octave. Now you can get more creative with your melody. You don't have to do 1, 2, 3. Let's add a little bit of rhythm in here. So we're going downward. Again, when you go downward, it creates that depressed, that's the word I'm looking for. Depressed mood. Now in the chord progression, let's add a couple ghost notes in here, or soft notes, to kind of make it feel like it's another rhythm. So we're going to start adding these bass notes at a very low velocity. Let's turn that up a little bit more. This is to add more rhythm to the track. So I'm going to go bum, 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 bum. So let's create that. We're going to land right on the root note, or the bottom note of that end chord. So it adds a secondary rhythm. It's kind of like contrast melody, but it's very subtle. So let's pull that volume or velocity down a little bit more. So that's the secret to the subtleties. Now let's pull the melody before the chord progression. So to do that, what we're going to do is select the melody in the playlist, go to snap to grid, none, and then we're going to highlight the melody, hit shift left, 1, 2, 3, 4. I like to do it in intervals of 4. Now we're going to create imperfections to make this more humanized. So let's go inside our melody and start pulling notes left and right to make them feel off time. So this note I want to be a little laxed, so let's hit shift right, 1, 2, 3. Wow, that's a little. Let's go to snap to grid. Let's change it to none first and hit shift right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm micro nudging the note over to the right. So some notes are early, some notes are delayed. That's the trick here. So let's do this one. Shift it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I micro nudged it over 6. And that creates a nice humanized feel. Now the first note may be a little too early. So let's pull it back just 2 steps or 2 shifts. Shift right, 1, 2. So we haven't processed the sound. So right now it sounds like a mess because it's just raw sound. But the secret is in the mixing. So let's get the elements down first and then get into the mixing later. And then we're going to finish the product with a vocal. So let's see here. We need a Moog bass. So for the Moog bass, this one you might have to open up a third-party plugin. So let's go to, I'm trying to think of an FL Studio native plugin we can use. Let's use GMS. Let's go to Banks, User, Default. Now sound design can apply to any plugin. So when I'm using certain plugins, it's the concept, it's not the plugin. So please be sure to follow along with the parameters that I'm modulating. So what we're going to do is start with a saw wave, and we're going to play it at a very low octave. So let's lower the octave down 2. So you start with a very low octave to begin with. Now we need to give the sound a decay curve so it doesn't last forever. So let's lower the sustain so that it only relies on the decay curve. And decay means you're dying over time. So let's lower that decay curve to a nice kind of plucky type of sound. This is how you get the pluck style sounds. Now for the Moog, you want to add a little release. So it's similar to an 808 where you hit the key and it kind of plays after you hit the key. So the modulation we're going to create here is for the filter. So let's go to envelope. Let's activate the destination for the filter cutoff. So we're going to assign some envelope to the filter cutoff point. So you can do that in most every plugin that offers these parameters. Let's turn the amount up for the envelope. So it's going to start at this value for the cutoff filter. So if you want it to be very bright in the beginning, turn it all the way up. If you want it to be kind of muffled starting out, turn it to about the midsection. We're going to give it a decay curve, a very short decay curve. And now we need to set the minimum value for the cutoff point. Let's lower that all the way down. So now it goes from, let me turn the amount up. So it goes from an open filter to a closed filter. So if this were the filter knob, it starts at the top and then goes down to this position over this amount of time. So that's how we get that kind of Moogy sound. Now, one of the keys is to turn up resonance. and you can hear the filter moving. So I'm going to turn that resonance down a bit. Now let's play those low octaves. Now what I like to do is fine tune. I like to add multiple oscillators, like 2. So we have 2 solid oscillators, and I like to fine tune or detune these by very small amounts. So let's do +6 for the first voice, -6 for the second. So it creates somewhat of a detuned sound without even adding multiple voices and detuning. So let's again play low octaves to get that kind of rumbly sound. So let's right click, go to piano roll, and figure out a note we want to play. I like A sharp for this tone. Now again, it sounds mediocre because we didn't process the sound, but it's going to be incredible what we turn it into just with stock plugins. Now let's play this at a very low octave. Let's hit Control A, 1, 2, and hit Control down. So now we get that rumbly bass sound, kind of like the DJ Mustard sound. But if you want to make it more rumbly, Control down one more time, and it creates a very kind of muddy sound. Now what I'm going to do is liven it up with some volume and some saturation when we get into the mixing stage. And I'm going to add a high pass filter to cut out some of those low frequencies. But let's treat this like it were a kick, and let's add variations. So let's go to pattern 7. And at the end, let's add that note again. Let's change our snap to grid to half step. And we're going to do the double kick thing where the kick kind of is introduced right at the end and then it goes boom, boom. So let's do that. Again, it sounds messy now. Trust me, when we get to processing, we're going to transform this whole song. Okay. So it looks like we have all the elements. We have the Moog, we have the chords, we have the melody, we have the drums, and everything else. So now let's get into mixing. So I'm going to start with the melody. And the secret here, let me see. So the melody is track 5. Let's open up Fruity Reverb 2. Let's turn up the wet level of the reverb. And let's lower the dry level. Here's the key, to lower the dry level so that it's only reverb. So the reverb creates a little micro delay in the response, and it also muffles the sound. So if I solo this, it sounds very blurred and kind of stretched out. And this is how we can control the sound. We're giving it a longer tail by this decay time in the reverb. So let's turn that up. So that's how you get that stretched out tone for the piano. It's not, you know, some magical synth. So that's the secret for the melody. Let's get into the chords. Now the chords, we want to muffle the sound. So let's open up an EQ so that we can filter out the sound. Let's start with a low pass filter shape. And let's cut out some of those high frequencies. So we're giving it that lo-fi sound and muffling it to the back. Now some would like to add reverb directly to a piano, or you could do aux reverb, it really depends, but let's add direct reverb just like we did with the melody to widen out the sound a bit. So now we're reshaping the tone. So we took that kind of cheesy stock piano and made it, you know, record worthy. So if you just had the melody and the chords, it would sound thick. Now for the Moog, let's add that high pass filter so we get rid of some of those subtones. All we want is the tone of the mids to the high frequencies. So let's add a high pass filter. That's all we need is brown brown. We don't need the boom boom part. So that's all we need. Now let's delay it behind the track so that we can hear it from the kick. So let's go to GMS, go to the wrench tool. This is a way to kind of shift notes without going into every MIDI channel. Just go to time shift, turn that up a little bit. So it's a little bit delayed behind the kick. And it creates a nice groove as well. Now let's go to the Foley sound here, the mug scrape, which you would never guess would be a snare. Let's add Fruity Reverb 2, your best friend in this case. Let's turn that wet level up. Let's widen out the stereo separation as well. And again, you manipulate that dry level to really pull out some of that direct reverb. There you go. And it sounds great the way it is. Now the kick, remember it's an 808 kick, so it needs to be tuned because it has a very long kind of subby bass. And a lot of people do not tune their bass. So let's right click, go to edit, select pitch regions, detect pitch regions, and we see two values for the 808. We're gonna pick the longer value. So this is F sharp for the longer value. Go back into your envelope and change your root note, reset it, and we're gonna set it to F sharp. So let's right click on F sharp. And now the kick is tuned to our keyboard, so now I can manipulate which key we're playing with the kick. I like the tone, so it's playing middle C right now, which sounds good with this track. Now we can go down a little bit further in the MIDI for the Moog. Let's drop it down one more octave, hitting control down. That's a little too low. I think what I did here, isolated too much high end, so it sounds like a higher pitch. So let's pull it down a little bit with the high pass, so we get some of that rumbly low end without digging too deep into the bass. There we go. So let's create, somewhat of a pseudo kind of song. So since we started the melody out early, you can even hear in their song, the melody kind of starts not on its original spot. It starts on an earlier spot. It starts on a later spot. So what I would try and do is maybe sample the melody into audio form so that you can cut it directly. But let's try to cut the MIDI. I'm not sure if this will work the way I want it to, but let's hit right click and get rid of the excess in the beginning so that we can start off on a strong transient. You can hear it kind of starts a little bit late. So when we duplicate this, what I would do is select the sections after that point, because remember the beginning part is cut off. That microscopic beginning section is cut off. So let's just select these and duplicate these. So let's hit shift twice so that we have another 8 bars. And then we're going to just duplicate that Moog over. And now we can use these as the new song structures. Remember that microscopic time delay is extremely important. And it looks like time's off here. So let's move that a little earlier, as you can see. Let me see here. What can we do? Let's zoom back out. So what happened is I pasted it and it's a little behind the track. So I'm going to do this manually, but you would really take your time. So I put my snap to grid on none and moved it over. Let me make sure there aren't any time differences, which it looks like I created some. So let me get rid of these since I messed that up by accident. Delete those. And then bring these over. Make sure you're zooming in and checking for that kick and make sure it's right on the beat. And cut out any excess that you may have, like right here, right click, get rid of the excess so it doesn't overlap. But you want the melody, if you zoom in enough, you can see the melody comes in before the bar. That's what we want to maintain. So I'm going to move the Moog around again to kind of format it because I had to move stuff around. Just duplicate it over here, and then we can continue building the song with these elements. Again, make sure when you're duplicating the sections that you have the melody come before the rest of the track, and make sure your track starts on the downbeat. Okay, or else you're gonna mess up the timing. Now the secret to some of the filtering is to add a little resonance. Okay, so let's go back to the piano. It's a muffled sound, but we want to bring back some of the tone. So what we're going to do is pull down the bandwidth or turn up our resonance. And it adds like a hollow type of focus sound. So that's how you can pull back some of the life after you filter something, is the resonance. So I want to go bum bum, not dum dum. So I did the wrong Moog swing. I want to go 1 2, not bum bum. So let's do this. Okay, I had it in the wrong spot. down those chords. Now mixing would take this to a completely different level, especially with a vocal on it. And if I have enough time, I'll add a vocal idea. Our version is going to be called Real Men, Not Real Friends. Let's duplicate this over. Let's get rid of the drums. So here's how you create different sections for your song. You want to omit things and treat the Moog like it's a variation. I didn't check the headphone mix, but you would make sure the bass is translating. Now over my monitors, I can hear the sub just fine. Headphone mix sounds pretty good. Nice and wide. Piano's a little heavy, so let's turn that down. And what you want to do, since we played it in a different key, this is not the notation from the Real Friends song at all. If you want to copy notes, you can go do it yourself. This is not about copying the exact notes. We created our own style by changing the key, changing the way we played the melody, changing the rhythm up, you know, still maintaining that emotion. Remember, emotion is created with the chord progression. Now, one thing you want to test before you continue is the key of the whole song. You could do this individually by transposing each note down or up. But I like to use the master pitch knob and pull it down into 100-cent intervals to hear different keys. So I like to try that. And I think that's the real song, maybe. If you pull it down 100 cents. Let's pull it up 200. And you get different, you know, it still maintains that emotion because the emotions are locked inside the chord progression and the way you compose. But it changes the tone. So that's how you could kind of flip it and make it your own. That rhymed. If you want these project files, you want to click that link below or go to busyworksbeats.com/Kanye. And this is the Kanye West series here, busyworksbeats.com/Kanye. I'm trying to think of anything else I may have skipped or any notes I had. Oh, so the next step is to record in the style of the artist. If I have enough time, I'll record like a demo. And you want to record over the track to really feel where the artist can fit into the gaps and think in the mind of Kanye, because when you're producing, you want to think from the mind of the artist. It's not about your style. It's about creating through the image of the artist. And that's the power of the producer. So the next step, again, is to lay down lyric. If you can't sing, if you can't rap, just hum it or whistle it or beatbox, whatever you have to do, get your idea across so that you know where the vocalist can fit inside your song so that you can get rid of anything that blocks that kind of groove. thanks for watching today. It's busyworksbeats.com.